All right. So let's, now that we've taken this little detour, let's start this over, shall we? We'll grab a sip of water. Oh my god, I don't care. It's like every server I'm on is now multicasting Beck's announcement, so I'm getting an alert like there's a new announcement, there's a new announcement, there's a new announcement. Because it's all the different servers I'm on that are pulling through her announcement from the main Discord page. Because if people are on Discord for an individual server, I guess people assume like, oh, you're never going to look at the official Star Trek Discord either, which doesn't make sense to me. But if you're on one Discord, you should be on the other. But I guess there are some people who don't. They just look at like just their Alliance Discord and that's it. That's all they can handle. Instead of looking at the one for the official game where you get all the official announcements and stuff. That's just too much to keep up with. So, yeah. All right. So, Rev Deuce came up, and this guy Archduke, who I don't know, but seems like a good dude, or put together a good little rubric here for grading the arc. Um, Over on Rev's Discord, there is a link for the video he just put out the other day. There was a link to this rubric to help figure out the grade. There's also a link to a Google Doc, Google form where you can submit your grades. So he's trying to, I guess, crowdsource and collect all the data to get feedback from as many people as possible, put it here, put it together, and then compile it and send it to Scopely and say like, hey, I got 462 responses and they gave this arc a C minus cumulatively, or whatever the case may be. So that's what we're going to do here. So just like in school, grades will be A, B, C, D, F. Each letter grade 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Grading brackets will be in 10 points. A is 90 to 100, B is 80 to 89. Okay, so again, just like in school, although I think for me a D was 65 to 69, but still, same difference. A's are really super good, exceed expectations. B is good or slightly above average. C is basically par for the course. D kind of failed to meet expectations. It's kind of underwhelming. And F is just, well, starbase assaults. I should just put that in parentheses right here, i.e. starbase assaults. Okay, so we got a few categories here. Officers. Okay. Cover the officers that are released that month. So we only got 2 officers this month, right? Hugh and Galinar? That's all we got, right? Those are just our new guys. We got Hugh. We got Galinar. Let's take a quick peek. Galinar, below deck officer. Officer ability, increasing faction rep gain from killing hostiles. Not great, because honestly, you're not going to want him in your factions in your 3rd officer slot. You're going to pretty much be using Pike Muro Chen to do your faction grinding, unless you're above Ops 50. And in which case, then maybe he helps slot into that 3rd slot for the extra boost. Below deck ability, increasing the amount of resources dropped for both Apex and Borg. This is a good value. This is a good officer. And if you bought the $20 battle pass, I think you unlocked him. I don't think I got him on my free-to-play account. I don't think I got him on this account. Maybe I did. Let's find out. Nope. I got 30 out of 38. Now, he does have sourcing through the refinery as does Hugh. But again, if you are lower level, he's not in this first entry level pack. He's only in the rare and the epic pack. So if you can't source him until you're at least Ops 40 to get the other packs, and you can't even start doing the uncommon solos until you have a maxed Vidar, we'll say his sourcing is not great. You finished all the events except the solo Armada ones. Those are the ones I couldn't finish either. Yep. Yeah, if you bought the $20 battle pass, you got enough in the bottom half of the battle pass to unlock him. But if you didn't, then you came up a little short, and then you also came up. So no free-to-play officers this month. And while the officers are good quality, Hugh is an outstanding officer. And Galinar is a decent officer. I want to give them high marks for that. But the sourcing for those officers is not good. And because it's considered their permanent form of sourcing, it's not going to get any better. So I think I'm going to have to give that a B. We'll write this down. We'll say officers, we'll give them a B. Because again, two very good officers, but no free-to-play path to get them under Ops 40. I almost want to give them a C for that. I really do almost want to give them a C. Tech Dragon says you were supposed to get the Fat Borg with the Battle Pass. If you did all the events and bought the $20 Battle Pass, you should have gotten enough shards to unlock Galinar. Yeah, Chat Incursions was canceled. More of the same crap, new day, basically. Prim, you only got 35 out of 38. You needed to score on an SLB to get. I'm sure there was a combination between events and things like that. You might have had to at least rank somewhere in there. So, yeah, sourcing wasn't the best. And also knowing that this is our path going for, I'm going to give him a C. I'm talking myself into it because there's no sourcing for these officers below Ops 40. And I feel like that's a mistake. At least the Bajoran faction does have a little bit of sourcing. You do have at least some way to get them below Ops 40. You know, the Bajoran faction store is not a good way at all. But the uncommon loot box does not get you any officer shards. However, the elite loot box does have officer shards in it. Again, not great for the amount of armadas you have to kill to open one of these things, but it's there and it's accessible. As opposed to, hey, you're not Ops 40 yet. You don't get the officers. So I'm going with a C. Ships. There were no new ships. So no new ships that came out. Featured features. Prime's new research and new game loops will be graded. Okay, so we're talking about new game loops. So we'll be talking about new Borg solo armadas. How do new Borg solo armadas work? And the loop there. Yeah, that's also going to be a C for the same reason. The fact that the directives are not sourceable unless your Vidar is maxed at tier 9 is already a bit of a deterrence and a problem. And then the fact that, again, players under Ops 40 don't have access to the rares and epics to be able to continue to complete those. Even players who are 38 or 39 who would have access to deep space, who could get to, you know, some of these nodes out here, don't have access to them. even if you wanted to go here to the 42 system, which does have rares and epics in it. In the 42 system, this is well within, regular warp range for regular 35, 36, 38 players to get to, players who haven't opened deep space yet, but you can't source the directives. Because in this good old refinery in here, the uncommon box does have the rare directives, but there is no rare loot box. So you can do rares, but you can't cash in any of the currency you get from them, which would get you the epics as well as the additional officer shards like Galinar. So again, I feel like that's a miss. So we're going to give that another C. Should the fleet commanders count as officers? No. The fleet commanders, that's another feature. Okay. You're right. That's another feature. The fleet commanders. The fleet commanders are good, and they do add a good amount of value to the game. Sourcing on them is a little slow. The ability, obviously it's going to take time with the new feature to develop. It does give new stats and new abilities. The building itself does give new things. Like the fleet commander aspect, I would give a B to. I almost want to grade those separately because I feel like there's two separate loops, right? There's the new fleet commander and there's the new Borg. I'm going to grade those separately. And I'm going to give the fleet commanders a B because they benefit the game. Sourcing is a little off for them. And there, was some failure with the communication. I mean, they tried to put it out there. It should have been more in-game instead of just on Discord. But there was at least something out there about the fleet commanders and how certain abilities are like one per level and how it's sort of locked out there. So that's a good point. I forgot about the fleet commanders. Everyone did get one for free, which is good. Everyone did get those first row of benefits. So you're getting some extra, skills or abilities completely free to play to boost your gameplay experience. And then you do have, there is a path at least to get the other one, whether if you picked Kirk or Spock, you can get the other one unlocked eventually. It's going to take a little RNG, a little random luck. Locutus is pay only, but okay, that's fine. You gave me one for free, and I can grind the second one eventually. Figure out how to get the third one later. So I don't feel like that's necessarily... I feel like that's pretty overall, that's a solid B category from that there. So, alright, let's move on to the event calendar. At the events planned for that month, things like sourcing for events, tickets, okay. There's no event store, there's no categories or things like that. The actual event calendar, I felt like had a good variety of events to it. And it did have the meta event that lasted all month long that I thought was a good feature. It was harder, again, because part of the mechanic for it to complete it revolved around being able to do the Borg solo armadas. And if you didn't have that tier 9 Vidar, you couldn't source the directives, so you couldn't complete a couple of the events. And that was a little disappointing. They basically just expected everyone to have a tier 9 Vidar. If you have a Vidar, but it's not tier 9, if you fell into that window, if you have it, but it's not maxed out yet, then it was impossible for you to finish everything. And you kind of got screwed over a little bit. So I feel like that kind of falls again into a C here. Players can reasonably participate in a majority of the events. As far as, because if you're looking at good value of rewards to time, some events paid out better than others. The ticket events were also a letdown because the ticket events did not have any officer shards in them. So that would have been another way to get some Galinar shards or something like that, would be if they had put him in the ticket events to help people source him. But they didn't do that because he was already in the Borg Armada chests, and they felt like that's a good enough mechanism to source these officers. Unless you're not level 40 and you can't get access to that stuff. So, as far as the calendar goes, I guess we'll give that a B. Because you could do most of the events. There were a couple that you just came up a little short on. The tickets didn't have the same value that they would for other months. I personally did not do any ticket events this month. I banked all my tickets and said I will save them for a future month when either they have officer shards or event store currency in them. So, miscellaneous communication category. Ooh. This is for things like the treasury glitch, the epic oopsie chest communication. Grades here are subjective, which are meant to be objective in other categories. Hey, Benny Hills Ghost, welcome on in. We are just doing a little bit of arc grading here now that the Borg arc is over. And we've come down to our final metric here. Communication. Well, we talked about at the top of the hour that the fact that there was no in-game announcement about incursions was a failure of their communicate. The fact that the event calendar was wrong and they added additional events that didn't get updated on the event calendar throughout the month. Trying to think, were there any like big glitches though this month? Were there any big glitches in the Borg arc? Or mistakes or errors? I don't necessarily think so. Yeah, Beck and Eco have been doing a good job pushing out more updates. You know what? Maybe that's the easiest way to do it. Let me just go to the official Star Trek Fleet Command announcement section, and let's just scroll up back to the beginning of January and see what they actually posted in here. All right, so they announced about fleet commanders and how those guys would work. Gave a little bit of an in-depth analysis in this particular website. So we got this website update post, which did kind of break down a little bit about the fleet commanders. So this was pretty good quality here, and how you would source the stuff for it. So there's a decent announcement. Oh, that's right. They did have an issue where you weren't getting the right rewards. So that was a problem. They did fix it and gave everybody a few extra shards. As a result, everybody got a little bit more of a head start towards sourcing your extra officer. So that, so far, was a pretty good fix and a pretty quick fix. I remember that now. Day one, they were doing the mission you had to do, and you'd get like 147 out of 150 Kirk shards or whatever. So they gave everybody 10 to fix that. There were some updates. There were some issues with scoring. They were working on some coding issues. Took them a couple extra hours to finish that. That was back on around the 13th. We had some major delays that took, wow, that was like 6+ hours, 8 hours. It took them 8 hours to fix the glitch, but they did send out a gift chest that had Fleet Commander credits and skill points, 7 days worth of loyalty badges, and 5 extra Hue shards. So that would be good compensation. For 8 hours worth of delays, you got a week worth of loyalty badges and 5 Hue shards and some more materials for your fleet commanders. I feel like that's pretty good value. And then they added Locutus. And then they changed the XSLBs to just regular SLBs, which was probably a pretty good fix for that. They also added the Infinitus refit events mid-arc. Those were not announced, so that was actually a good takeaway and a good positive. When they changed those XSLBs to SLBs, they also were like, you know what, we need to add, they heard the feedback, and then they also added in 2 events to source Infinitus skins to help cut down on the grind time with that. So I feel like that's pretty good too. So I'm inclined to give them a B in the miscellaneous category for those things throughout the arc. So if we give them a C on the officers, for features, they get like a B minus because the Borg is a C, but the fleet commanders are a B. Like the event calendar was a B. Their communication and their fixing glitches was about a B. So I think overall, they're getting like a B minus for the month. I feel like that's where we are in terms of grading this month. So we used this little rubric here. That's kind of what we came up with. I'm thinking they're probably getting about an 84. If I had to arbitrarily throw a number on it, we'll call it an 84, 83. So, what'd you guys come up with? What'd you guys come up with for your final overall tallies? Would you getting some B's, some C's, B's, B minuses? If you're watching this on YouTube later, feel free to leave yours in the comments below. Olympus says gut reaction is somewhere in a B to B plus range. Chad gives it a B minus for the month. Anybody else feel like sharing? B sounds about right. Benny Hill's Ghost says C overall because of the 35 to 39 getting the shaft. Yep, that certainly dragged the average down on my score quite a bit. Samo says B. Laratka C minus B, so just kind of somewhere in between. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Maverick says B minus. So we're all right in that same range. Okay. Yep. All the players, and I feel like it's going to be more of the range level where you're at. If you're 39 and under, you're probably going to give it a C because you're going to feel like you got left out of some content. Again, you just got left out of the whole, some of the whole Bajoran Jem'Hadar stuff. And now here you are a month or two later, and it's like, and you're still not 40 yet. Haha, sucks to be you. And if you were 40 plus, you might be more leaning toward the B side because at least you have access to more of that stuff and you should have more of the content available for everything. So I think that's where I think that's where the dividing line is going to be. If you're 40 plus, you probably give it a B. If you're under 40, if you're in that 30 to 39 range, you're probably going to give it a C. So, yep. Vic Nice Ops 39 says you would give it a C. It would be a B if they didn't worsen the grind. Yep. Adding the Infinitus skin was a nice plus. Again, they did some good things. They responded to some good things. Like their planning was a little off. They pivoted mid-month and made some good adjustments. They went into the locker room at halftime, came out with a new game plan, made some adjustments. Gonna see what we can do in the second half. Like that's the kind of thing that they did. And we give them credit for that, for making those changes and adjustments. But unfortunately, some part of the core mechanic still left people out in the cold. Nuge Fireball, big time felt like that. It's been more. First, it was the Mantis, then it was the Bajor stuff. Yep. Because you weren't 35 yet. And that's the thing, too. You keep opening new servers, and then you keep making this content for 35 plus. And it's like, well, how are the people on these new servers supposed to engage with any of this stuff? And if they only feel like you're catering to your older existing playgroup, do they expect you to just drop thousands of dollars to move from 20 to 39 in like 2 months? Well, probably, but most people aren't going to do that, especially with their server still level locked at 39. If you can't even do an ascension key to get to 40 plus, how are you supposed to engage in any of this new content they just added to the game? Even if you did spend, you're still not allowed to participate in it, and it's supposed to sit here and just be like the little kid pressing his face against the window, like, oh, looks really fun in there. Someday I'll be allowed in there too. So, and I feel like there's still that disconnect that doesn't get taken into consideration enough. So, they will say you can't please everyone. Well, that's certainly true, but you could please a heck of a lot more people than you are now, very easily. Just move all the stupid chests. Instead of having them be Ops 40 required, if the loop starts at 35 and you can start doing the armadas at 35, put all the rewards at 35. Make it be my problem to figure out how to get my ships out here and how to kill this stuff and how to get these reward chests if I'm only 35 with, a tier 9 Vidar, a tier 8 Vidar, and an Augur and a Saladin. Make it be my problem to figure out how to get my officers what exocomps and apply, getting a friend to give me a Cerritos buff or something like that. Make that be my problem. Don't make it your problem and try to just play the game around it and steer me to where you want me to be. Just put the content out there and let me go get it. Or figure out how to get it. Or realize, like, hey, am I getting closer? Let me try another one. Oh, I came up 2 million short. Okay. Well, I need to, all right, I can tier this officer up, and then, okay, well, I can upgrade this extra component. Okay, I got a little bit more here, and okay, well, now, I get this extra, I do some more research, get that up, get a little bit more of a boost there. Oh, now I can take the 41 uncommons out. Can't do the rares yet, but at least I can get these. Okay, I'm getting there. But what's the point of trying to do all this? Like, I can't do any of these. I'm not going to just keep rushing to Ops 40 and invest all my resources into my buildings so I can get the ability to access this content, because that means I have the same level ships. I have the same level ships at 35 or 36 as I did, because I dumped all my resources into my ops to get to the new content. Just move the requirement to 35 and let me still try and do it with the same ships. Maybe I've done a little bit more research, but honestly, if I've pushed and rushed my way to get to 40 to get to this content, that means I have not spent any resources upgrading my ships because I've been using them all in my buildings instead. So that's where I'm going to say. Wisdom all around. Well, yeah, it does make sense. Yep.